Rain Country. The Ling clan residence. The moon hung like a dead eye in the center of the midnight sky. It took Ling Han exactly 10 seconds to swallow the jagged truth: he had been reborn. 10 seconds, an eternity for a man who once stood at the peak of the heaven tier, but what had happened to him defied every law of gods and men. In his past life, he was a god among martial artists and a titan of alchemy. He was the Alchemy Emperor, the man whose three-fire guide tore the throat out of traditional theory and birthed a revolution. But the summit of the world wasn't enough. He craved the shattering void tier, to break the world itself and step into immortality. He crawled through the filth of 1,000 ruins until he found it in the Black Blood Valley, an ancient tower, pulsing with a power that shouldn't exist. Upon its surface, golden words bled into reality, revealing the indestructible heaven scroll. Its promise was absolute: a body that would never rot, a life that would outlast the sun and outlive the moon. Even as a heaven-tier warrior, the script was a nightmare, obscure, cryptic, a heavenly book that mocked his understanding. He forced the words into his mind, desperate to possess them. But as he reached for the tower, it bucked. A pillar of celestial light erupted, vaporizing his mortal shell instantly. He didn't die. For 10,000 years, his spirit drifted in a claustrophobic half-consciousness. 10 millennia of nothingness, with only the indestructible heaven scroll to gnaw on. By the time he clawed his way back to the light, he had mastered only the first layer. 10,000 years for one layer. A heaven-tier warrior doesn't even live for 1,000. In any other life, he would have been a corpse before he understood the first sentence. Now, he was awake. In the body of a 16-year-old boy, also named Ling Han. Greater than, I don't care how. I am back. Greater than. This new body was pathetic, stuck at the second layer of the body refining tier. Literal trash, but he was a heaven-tier soul wrapped in weak flesh. He was a grandmaster alchemist. If the foundation was rotten, he would rebuild it with pills and fire. And then, the memories hit him like a physical blow. A violent, jagged flood of another boy's life merged with his own. I see. The boy was a failure because his spirit base was a chaotic mess of 5 elements, the 5 elements disarray. In this world, that was the ultimate curse. It was the yellow-grade low level, the bottom of the barrel. While others soared, he crawled. But as Ling Han used his titanic mental strength to peer into his new dantian, his breath hitched. The disarray wasn't chaos, it was perfect, lethal balance. The elements formed a blooming lotus. The 5 elements mix chaos lotus. This wasn't trash, this was an immortal-grade spirit base, a mythic phenomenon rarer than his previous life's 9 yang fire. The boy had failed because he was trying to fuel a god-tier engine with pond water. 50 years, Ling Han whispered, his face twisting into a predatory grin. In 50 years, I will sit on the throne of the heaven tier again. Then, he remembered how the boy died. His father, Ling Dongxing, had gambled his life to buy his son a future. He had ventured into the death trap of Purple Light Ground Valley just to secure a spot for Ling Han at Huyong Academy. And while the father was away, the vultures moved in. The chief butler, Ling Zhongquan, a spineless dog, had demanded Ling Han surrender his spot to his own grandson. When the boy refused, the butler, a warrior of the element gathering tier, didn't argue. He struck. One punch, a brutal, crushing blow that shattered the boy's spirit base and left him to die in a locked room, rotting in his own anger. Ling Han's eyes turned to ice. You went too far, he hissed. My father trades his life for mine, and you think you can just reach out and take it? He stood, his body screamed in agony, his spirit base cracked and leaking. To anyone else, it was a death sentence. To the Alchemy Emperor, it was an inconvenience. He sat, legs crossed, and triggered the indestructible heaven scroll. Wang, wang, wang. Violent surges of vitality tore through his veins. The technique didn't just cultivate energy, it cannibalized his origin power to force the flesh to mend. Within minutes, the internal bleeding stopped. The bone-deep ache vanished. He opened his eyes as the morning light bled through the window. Now, he murmured, let's go give that old dog a surprise. He threw open the door. A tall figure blocked his path, Zhang Yuan, one of the butler's lapdogs. The man smirked, looking at Ling Han like he was a piece of stepped-on filth. Young Master Han, the chief butler said you stay in your hole today. Ling Han's gaze was lethal. You dare stand in my way? The lackey laughed. It's an order. Don't make this hard on. A crack like a whip echoed in the hallway. Ling Han's hand was a blur. Zhang Yuan stumbled back, his face blooming into a red welt. He stared in shock. This trash hit him. What are you doing? Ling Han asked, his voice a low, dangerous growl. I told you to move. Are you deaf? Zhang Yuan's face contorted with rage. You little piece of, the butler said I could break you if I had to. You forced my The second slap was harder. It didn't just sting, it silenced. One editor's note. It's most likely referring to a scroll bound from bamboo slips, the kind that feels ancient, fragile, and heavy with secrets carved into its very fibers. Two editor's note. Dantian, the so-called sea of qi, is believed to lie deep within the body, in the lower abdomen near the pubic region. It is not just an organ, it is the core of cultivation, the furnace where qi is forged, compressed, and refined. In traditional Chinese medicine, it stands as a crucial nexus of life force, the place where power gathers, surges, or shatters if mishandled. 3 editor's note. Yes, the very same name. But this time, it is not merely a term or a concept. It is a cultivation technique, a method, a discipline, a path that can either elevate one to unimaginable heights, or destroy them from the inside out. Zhang Yuan was losing his mind. He, a fourth-layer warrior, had just been slapped twice by a piece of human garbage. The sheer humiliation blinded him to the impossible reality of what had just happened. With a primal roar, he lunged, his fist cutting through the air with enough force to whistle. His only thought, crush the trash. Ling Han watched him with a terrifying, icy stillness. In his past life, he could have snuffed out 10,000 Zhang Yuans with a thought. Now, he only had the frail strength of the second layer. The gap in power was a problem, yes, but it was a problem for a mortal, not a god. He didn't need strength, he had the eyes of a heaven-tier sovereign. He saw the shift in Zhang Yuan's hip, the tension in his shoulder, the exact trajectory of the lunging foot. He didn't just see the punch, he saw the future. Whoosh! The fist grazed the air where Ling Han's face had been a millisecond before. Zhang Yuan's grin froze. He was certain he had hit him, but Ling Han had retreated by a hair's breadth, a distance so perfectly calculated it was as if he'd measured it with a ruler. Before Zhang Yuan could even process the miss, Ling Han's palm blurred again. Another crisp, stinging slap. God damn it! Zhang Yuan spat blood, screaming in fury as he swung again. Another miss. Ling Han moved like a ghost, his upper body swaying back while his hands planted on the ground. From that low angle, his right foot whipped out like a scorpion's tail, striking Zhang Yuan directly between the legs. Ow. Fourth layer cultivation doesn't give you balls of iron. Zhang Yuan collapsed to his knees, his face turning a sickly purple as cold sweat exploded across his skin. You cheating bastard, he wheezed, his features twisted into a grotesque mask of agony. Ling Han slapped him again, sending shattered teeth skittering across the floor. His voice was cold enough to frost the air. A dog remains a dog. I shouldn't have expected ivory to come out of that mouth. Zhang Yuan shook with a mix of pain and terror. If he let Ling Han escape, the chief butler would have his head. Young master, wait, you've been poisoned. If you leave this room, you'll drop dead. Ling Han didn't even dignify the pathetic lie with a response. He simply kicked the lackey aside and strode toward the living room. He had no more time for dogs, he had a thief to catch. The living room, a den of thieves. Ling Han reached the inner doorway and paused behind the curtains. He could hear the oily, sycophantic voice of the chief butler, Ling Zhongquan. Miss Lu, please, I insist. Through the veil, he saw them. 5 people. There was Ling Zhongquan, the old vulture, his 2 middle-aged sons, and his grandson, Ling Muyun, who stood there looking smug. But it was the 5th person who caught Ling Han's eye. She was stunning, 17, maybe 18, with skin like moonlight and eyes like autumn pools. She carried herself with an elegance that could ruin empires, but she was wrapped in an aura of ice. So, this is the envoy from the academy, Ling Han thought. Then, his eyes narrowed as he noticed something else, something coincidental, that made a predatory smile touch his lips. Is the student ready? Lu Yutong asked. Her voice was a cold melody, dripping with the disdain of a true genius forced to deal with backdoor politics. Ready, Ling Zhongquan chirped. He was terrified of her. He was at the 6th layer of the element gathering tier, he suspected this girl was already at the 7th or 8th. Muyun, come greet your senior sister Lu. Muyun greets senior sister. The boy stepped forward, his eyes burning with a disgusting, naked ambition. He looked at her not just as a peer, but as a prize to be won. Lu Yutong didn't care. She was here to pick up a Ling Han and leave. Since you're ready, let's go. Wait, the voice cut through the room like a blade. Ling Han stepped out from behind the curtain. The faces of the Ling family turned ashen. They were thieves caught in the act. Ling Muyun was the first to move, his eyes flashing with malice. Brother Han, you're injured. Go back to your room and rot. Muyun lunged, his hand reaching out to seize Ling Han and drag him away before he could speak. He was at the 7th layer of body refining. To him, Ling Han was nothing more than a bug to be crushed under his heel. The body refining tier has 9 layers, and the gulf between them is a jagged, bloody cliff. Between the early stages and the late stage 7th layer where Ling Muyun stood, there wasn't just a gap, there was an ocean of power. For a normal 2nd layer weakling, challenging a 7th layer warrior was suicide. But Ling Han wasn't normal. He was a god trapped in a cage of meat. As Muyun lunged, his face twisted in a sneer of pure mockery. He didn't even bother to dodge. He simply flooded his chest with origin power, hardening his muscles into living iron. He wanted to tank the hit, grab Ling Han by the throat, and drag him back into the shadows. Ling Han saw the arrogance. He counted on it. A thin, predatory smile touched his lips. Pung! The punch landed flush on Muyun's chest. Muyun's sneer didn't flicker. He reached out to grab Ling Han's shoulder. Brother Han, let me escort you back. Then, his world exploded. A fountain of crimson sprayed from his mouth. His insides turned into a boiling cauldron of agony, as if his organs were being put through a meat grinder. He collapsed into the dirt, clutching his chest, his face turning a ghostly, pathetic white. Ling Han was thrown back 7 steps, his spine slamming into the stone wall. His right arm hung limp, the bone popped clean out of its socket with a sickening, ka-chok. Without so much as a flinch, Ling Han used his left hand to wrench the joint back into place. He had used the hill-separating shock, a forbidden tier vibration technique that ignored external armor to detonate directly against the internal organs. Had Muyun been any weaker, that single punch would have turned his heart into jelly. You little beast, how dare you! Ling Zhongquan screamed, his voice cracking with a mix of fury and terror. Muyun only wanted to help you, and you attack him like a rabid dog. The old vulture was fast, already spinning a web of lies to frame Ling Han. But Ling Han didn't even look at him. He turned his gaze toward the ice-cold beauty, Lu Yutong. Miss, he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. You're dying. The room went deathly silent. Ling Zhongquan froze, a sick realization dawning on him. The fool is insulting an envoy of the Imperial Academy. He's digging his own grave, and his father's. Lu Yutong's eyes flashed with lethal disgust. She was a princess of the great Lu clan, a genius stalked by 1,000 suitors. She had seen every trick in the book, but, cursing, her was a new low. Know your place, Ling Zhongquan roared, kneel and beg for mercy. In this world, Ling Han said, stepping toward the girl until he hit the invisible wall of her killing intent, I kneel to my parents. No one else. He stopped exactly 3 paces away. He lowered his voice so only she could hear the edge of his words. Since you were 10, you've been blacking out. Once a year at first. Then once a month. Now, it's every 10 days, isn't it? The ice in Lu Yutong's expression shattered. Her breath hitched. This was a family secret guarded by blood and silence. How did this trash know? The 3 yin vanishing veins, Ling Han whispered, his eyes boring into hers. A divine curse. You won't see 21. On your 20th birthday, you'll fall into a sleep that has no end. Your body will become a beautiful, cold corpse. Lu Yutong felt a chill worse than any winter. She had seen the best doctors in the Rain country, they had all sensed the end coming but couldn't even name the rot. I can fix it, Ling Han said. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her pride remained a fortress. If you can cure me, I can make you a lord. I can give you gold and pills beyond your dreams. Ling Han laughed, a dry, rasping sound. There is only one way to survive the 3 yin mysterious arts. I have it, I will teach it to you. But I have one condition. He leaned in, his gaze arrogant and absolute. You become my follower, my shadow, my servant. The air around Lu Yutong turned to frost. She was an 8th layer element gathering genius, a high-born princess of the empire. And this 2nd layer insect wanted to own her. Don't look so insulted, Ling Han tempted, his voice like a silken trap. I'm not offering you a job. I'm offering you the world. The 7 vanishing lands, the bottomless oceans. I will take you to peaks your ancestors couldn't even dream of. Stay a princess and die a corpse, or follow me and become a god. Lu Yutong stared at him. For the first time in her life, she felt a flicker of genuine, terrifying hope. Lu Yutong was shaken to her core, but the demand was a jagged pill she couldn't swallow. To become the shadow of a 16-year-old, trash, was a death blow to her pride. She bit her lip until it nearly bled. Change the condition, ask for anything else. Ling Han's smile was thin, predatory. You're clawing at the ceiling of the 8th layer of element gathering, aren't you? Fine, I'll give you a taste of my sincerity. He leaned in and spat 2 lines of ancient, rhythmic power. 3 yin supporting element, plan of square path. 3 flowers assemble at the apex, shattering the approach of heaven. Lu Yutong began to scoff. What could a 2nd layer insect know of high-level cultivation? But as the words hit her ears, the origin energy in her veins didn't just stir, it roared. The stagnant barrier she had been hammering at for months suddenly groaned and hairline fractures appeared. The gateway to the 9th layer, which she thought was weeks away, was swinging wide open right now. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Just 2 lines. 2 lines had done more for her than a year of meditation. Those were just 2 crumbs from the 3 yin mysterious art, Ling Han said, his voice rising, cutting through the room like a king's decree. Become my follower, and I will hand you the keys to the godhead. PFF'd. Ha ha ha. Ling Zhongquan and his sons exploded into jagged, mocking laughter. To them, this was the peak of delusion. A bottom-tier brat telling a genius from the Imperial Academy that he would teach her. It was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. Even the maid-servants hid their faces, embarrassed for the young master's insanity. Lu Yutong's face went bone-white with fury. In a blur of motion, she was on him. Her hand, small, elegant, and hard as tempered steel, clamped around Ling Han's throat. She lifted him until his toes scraped the floor. Recite the rest, she hissed, her eyes twin pools of freezing death. Or I will snap your neck where you stand. Ling Han didn't claw at her hand. He didn't beg. Even as his face turned a bruised purple and his vision swam with red needles of light, he forced a ghastly, choking grin. Then kill me, he wheezed. I'll wait for you on the road to the netherworld. We can be traveling companions when you rot in a week. Her grip tightened. Ling Han's lungs screamed, his limbs began to twitch in the rhythmic throes of suffocation. Ling Zhongquan watched with bated breath, praying for the snap of bone. Will you speak? She demanded, loosening her grip just enough for a gasp. Ling Han shook his head with a bloody, stubborn finality. He needed a shield. He needed a hound to keep the vultures at bay while he rebuilt his empire. He would have her loyalty, or he would have nothing. His eyes rolled back, his body went limp, his arms dropping like lead weights. Damn you, Lu Yutong cursed inwardly. She couldn't let him die. She flooded his body with a surge of her own origin power, forcing his heart to jump-start. Ling Han collapsed, heaving, drawing in jagged lungfuls of air as the world rushed back in. 3 years, she rasped, the words tasting like ash. 3 years only. For 3 years, I will be your shadow. I will obey. Guh. The laughter in the room died a violent death. Ling Zhongquan looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He stared at them, his mouth hanging open like a landed fish. She agreed. The pride of the Lu clan just became a servant to a piece of trash. Ling Han wiped the spit from his chin and held out a trembling hand. Deal. Slap. Their palms met, a blood oath between warriors. As their skin touched, a jolt of raw, youthful electricity shot through Ling Han. For the first time, he felt the fire of his 16-year-old body truly merge with his ancient soul. He felt alive. He felt dangerous. Miss Lu, Ling Zhongquan stammered, trying to salvage the wreckage of his plan. Ignore this animal. Let us discuss the academy placement. Chief Butler, Ling Han interrupted, his voice dropping into a lethal register. My father is bleeding in the Black Blood Valley to pay for that spot. And you shameless old dog, want to hand it to your grandson so he can one day help you steal the clan head's throne. Do you even have a soul left, or is it just rot all the way through? You little beast. How dare you? The old man was shaking, his face a mask of purple rage. Ling Han turned to his new shadow. I don't want the academy spot. Cancel it. Tell them to pay me in high-grade medicinal cauldrons and potions instead. Consider it done. Lu Yutong nodded. No, Ling Zhongquan bellowed. That spot belongs to Mu Yun. You can't take it. Old dog, you're still barking. Ling Han's eyes flashed with a cold, cruel light. He looked at Lu Yutong. My first command. Break him. Hold this old bastard still. I want to feel his teeth break against my palm. The room went cold. Lu Yutong hesitated for a heartbeat, then stepped forward. Her battle intent erupted, heavy and suffocating, pinning the old man where he stood. Elder sister Lu, stop. Ling Muyun screamed, his heart breaking as he watched his goddess turn into his enemy's weapon. Lu Yutong didn't even look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the butler. Will you kneel? She asked with terrifying calm, or do I have to break your legs first? Dash. Lu Yutong moved with a terrifying, predatory grace. There was no contest. She was at the 8th layer of the element gathering tier, the late stage. Ling Zhongquan, stuck at the 6th, was a middle stage weakling by comparison. In the world of martial arts, 2 layers aren't just a gap, they are an unbridgeable canyon of raw power. Miss Lu, Ling Zhongquan roared, his face contorting with a mix of terror and disbelief. Are you truly going to side with this little beast? Old dog, Ling Han interjected, his voice smooth and dangerous. Watch your filthy mouth. The room nearly exploded. The Ling family, the sons, the grandson, were shaking with a fury that bordered on madness. Old dog, this trash was calling the chief butler a dog while telling them to watch their mouths. It was an insult so heavy, so overbearing, it felt like a physical weight. Ling Han just smiled. Overbearing, absolutely. In his past life, he was infamous for protecting his own with a savage, unreasonable loyalty. Right or wrong didn't matter in front of outsiders, he'd settle the score behind closed doors. And these vultures, they had crossed a line that deserved no mercy. Lu Yutong didn't waste words. She blurred forward, her movements as ethereal as a goddess descending from the heavens. Her palms pressed toward Ling Zhongquan with a haunting, otherworldly beauty. But to Ling Zhongquan, it felt like the sky was falling. Cold sweat drenched his back. He knew the gulf between them, but the thought of being humiliated by Ling Han, a boy, a failure, was a fate worse than death. 3 flip hands. He unleashed the Ling clan's signature yellow-grade technique, his hands weaving a desperate, high-speed defense. It was a fearsome skill that had made the Ling clan masters of Grey Cloud Town. It wasn't enough. Snapping of the plum hands, Lu Yutong whispered. Her small, pale hands turned over in a movement so graceful it looked like a dance, but the impact was devastating. High-level yellow-grade versus medium-level, late-stage cultivation versus middle stage. Ling Zhongquan was systematically dismantled. His experience, the only thing he had left, was rendered useless by Lu Yutong's genius-level battle comprehension. In 50 moves, it was over. He was pinned, his dantian suppressed, his origin power locked away. He was suddenly no stronger than a common peasant. Grandfather, father, Ling Mu-yun and the others screamed, but they were paralyzed by fear. They didn't look inward, they didn't feel guilt. They only felt a burning, poisonous hatred for Ling Han. If this trash hadn't walked through that door, the world would still be ours. Ling Han looked at Lu Yutong and nodded. If you had lowered your right hand on the 17th move and clapped 2 inches forward with your left, he would have dropped in 10. Your insight is good, but your execution is wasteful. Lu Yutong froze. She had thought Ling Han was just a lucky brat who stumbled onto an ancient manual. But this, to dissect her battle in real time, a chill of genuine reverence crawled up her spine. His eyes were not the eyes of a 16-year-old boy. Ling Han walked toward the restrained butler. He raised his hand. Little beast, you wouldn't dare. P.A. The slap rang out like a gunshot. Ling Han didn't hesitate for a heartbeat. The room went tomb silent. The maidservants gasped, their eyes wide. The great chief butler of the Ling clan had just been publicly backhanded by the clan's biggest joke. TCH, Ling Han muttered, shaking his hand. No wonder this old dog has such thick skin. My hand actually hurts. It was a cold, calculated insult. Ling Zhongquan's face had been tempered by years of origin power. A slap from a second-layer boy shouldn't have done more than sting. But this wasn't about physical damage. This was about erasing his dignity. Ling Zhongquan's eyes were bloodshot, practically spitting fire. Little beast, this ends in blood. You will regret this until your last breath. You're threatening me in front of my bodyguard. Ling Han sighed, turning to Lu Yutong. He's threatening your master. What's the protocol? Should we just kill him? The Ling family turned ghost white. If the butler died, their world ended. Ling Han shook his head, a cruel glint in his eyes. No, this old dog belongs to my father. My father should be the one to gut him. But he reached out and snapped a heavy wooden leg off a nearby table. He weighed it in his hand, his expression turning dark and jagged. He doesn't get to walk away clean. Pung. The table leg smashed into Ling Zhongquan's mouth. Blood sprayed, teeth, white and jagged, flew across the floor. Old dog, Ling Han snarled, the raw emotion finally breaking through. My father is out there bleeding in a death trap for me, and you try to steal his sacrifice. You beat me nearly to death yesterday because you were stronger. Where is that strength now? Pung, pung, pung. He thrashed the man with a rhythmic, brutal intensity. He didn't care if the man looked pitiful. A martial artist's vitality meant he'd survive the beating, but his pride was being ground into the dirt. By the time Ling Han stopped, the butler was a bloody, toothless heap of rags, his hair a matted mess of gore. Ling Zhongquan didn't make a sound, but the silence in his eyes promised a massacre. My hand is tired, Ling Han said, tossing the blood-stained wood aside. He turned to the ice beauty. Yutong, come, we're going for a walk. Yutong. Lu Yutong felt a violent shiver run down her spine. The casual, intimate way he said her name gave her goosebumps, not of romance, but of a strange, terrifying realization. This boy was truly going to drag her into his world. Dash. Ling Han and Lu Yutong turned their backs on the Ling residence, leaving a wake of stunned silence and suppressed fury. Ling Mu-yun and the others stood frozen, their pride hemorrhaging. Even the chief butler had been broken like a dry twig. Who was left to stop them? No one, unless Ling Dongxing returned, and everyone knew whose side the clan head would take. The 5 maidservants huddled in the shadows, their faces a kaleidoscope of shock. This was a blood-soaked drama they would be whispering about for the next 3 years. Where are we going? Lu Yutong asked, her voice tight. Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, Ling Han replied, his pace relentless. Lu Yutong offered a clipped, oh. She assumed he was finally going to address her sickness. After all, in her eyes, he was just a doctor with a silver tongue and a few ancient secrets. They reached the pavilion in 10 minutes. It was a titan of an organization, its roots buried deep in every city of the Rain Country. If a herb didn't exist in their vaults, it didn't exist in this world. Ling Han stepped up to the counter. A beautiful girl named Xiao Dao greeted him with a practiced smile, though her eyes lingered on Lu Yutong, momentarily paralyzed by the girl's lethal beauty. Ling Han didn't waste breath. I need violet lotus grass, blue branch fruit, 100-year vermilion bamboo, red-leafed potato, and rotted-leaf dead tree roots. Xiao Dao's smile died. She had worked there for 2 years and had never heard those names. Not once. Customer, I apologize, I've never heard of these plants. Stay here, I'll find someone who has. Ling Han nodded. He wasn't surprised. The element hard recover spirit powder was his personal creation from 10 millennia ago. It was a masterpiece of simplicity, but if the lineage of his students had died out, the formula was lost to the world. Minutes later, Xiao Dao returned with a man in his 30s, his face twisted into a mask of pure arrogance. Are you the one looking for trouble? The man demanded, looking at Ling Han like he was filth on his boot. Ling Han's brow twitched. Trouble, what are you talking about? Bah, spouting nonsense names for plants that don't exist. If that isn't looking for trouble, what is? The man harumphed, his eyes screaming that he'd already caught Ling Han in a lie. And why? Ling Han asked, his voice dropping an octave. Do you think they don't exist? Is that a joke? I am a medium-level yellow-grade alchemist. If I haven't heard of them, they don't exist. Now get out before I have you thrown out. The man, Ma Da-jun, waved his hand like he was shooing a persistent fly. The other customers in the shop gasped. An alchemist, even at the yellow grade, they were the nobility of the martial world, pampered and feared by every major power. In Grey Cloud Town, Ma Da-jun was a god. If Alchemist Ma says he's a fake, he's a fake. Coming to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion to play games. What a suicidal fool. Maybe he's just a clown looking for an audience. The crowd sneered, their sycophancy on full display. Ling Han's irritation flared into a cold spark. Your ignorance is a testament to your lack of ability. How dare you claim I'm causing trouble just because your brain is too small to hold the information? Go find someone with an actual education. I'm done speaking to a charlatan. Who do you think you're talking to? Ma Da-jun's face turned a violent shade of red. He was the master of this branch. Who could possibly be more educated than him? Behind them, the corners of Lu Yutong's lips curled. She stayed silent, watching with a touch of cold amusement. Let's see how you handle this, master. She wasn't about to bail him out. This was a colossal power he was insulting. Even the imperial family showed the pavilion respect. She wanted to see the arrogant Ling Han squirm. Get lost, Ma Da-jun barked, his patience snapped. You really won't regret this? Ling Han asked softly. Ha ha, what are you going to do to me, boy? Ma Da-jun laughed, a jagged, ugly sound. Ling Han didn't look at him. He turned to Lu Yutong. She expected him to beg for her protection, but instead, he leaned in. Help me shout something. Scream it 3 times, as loud as your lungs can manage. You've put too much Copper Valley sand. Lu Yutong stared at him. Was he insane? But the absolute, chilling confidence in his eyes made her blood stir. She took a breath, her element gathering strength fueling her voice into a literal lion's roar. You've put too much Copper Valley sand. You've put too much Copper Valley sand. You've put too much Copper Valley sand. The shop shook. Ma Da-jun turned to the guards, screaming, they're lunatics. Throw them. Boom. A muffled explosion rocked the building from the floor above. Every alchemist in the room froze. That was the sound of a furnace failing, a violent, expensive disaster. Thump 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 thump. Heavy, frantic footsteps hammered down the stairs. A white-haired elder burst into the room, his beard half singed, his face blackened with soot, and his robe smoking. He ignored everyone and lunged toward Lu Yutong like a starving man seeing bread. How? He screamed, his eyes wide and bloodshot. How did you know? How did you know I overcharged the Copper Valley sand? Lu Yutong recoiled, but her eyes were fixed on the silver emblem pinned to the old man's chest. 1 silver star. A low-level black-grade alchemist. In the Imperial City, this man would be a guest of the Emperor himself. Her own clan head would have to bow and call him Grand Master. And here he was, soot-stained and frantic, looking at her with a desperate, fawning hunger for knowledge. She turned her head slowly, looking at Ling Han. A shiver of genuine terror and awe raced through her. Who? No, what are you, Ling Han? Guh. The sound of a collective, panicked gasp ripped through the medicine shop. The air turned heavy, suffocating. Even those who didn't recognize the name Zhu Hixin weren't blind. That silver emblem pinned to his soot-stained chest screamed his status, a black-grade alchemist. In the Rain Country, a black-grade alchemist wasn't just a man, he was a walking monument of power. His status dwarfed city mayors, he was a peer to the high-ranking lords of the imperial court. Yet this titan, this Grand Master, was wearing an expression of desperate, frantic shock, all because of a few words from a teenager. It defied reality. People stared, their minds fracturing. They would have sooner believed the sun had fallen into the sea than accept what they were seeing. Ma Da-jun, in particular, looked like he was watching his own execution. Grandmaster Zhu was a legend within the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, a man Ma Da-jun wasn't even worthy of seeing on a normal day. To see the Grandmaster this shaken. Was this brat telling the truth? Were those plants real? Ling Han didn't even blink. He caught a scent in the air, his nose wrinkling slightly. HMPH, you're clever enough, I suppose. Tweaking the wind and fire pill formula. Using purple back bear pill, 1000 shred cane, and black rock powder to cut costs without killing the efficacy. Smart, cheap. How do you know that? Zhu Hixin whirled around, his voice a jagged, terrified roar. That was his secret, a private project he intended to use to humiliate his rivals once perfected. Ling Han's grin widened, sharp and cold. I have a nose, I used it. A monster, the thought echoed in everyone's mind. To dissect a complex, high-level pill formula just by sniffing the smoke of a failed batch. Formulae were the lifeblood of an alchemist, guarded more fiercely than a warrior guards his own throat. And this boy had just stripped it bare. Your theory holds water, Ling Han continued, his tone casual, almost bored. But Copper Valley sand is too stubborn, its melting point is a nightmare. No matter how much you grind it, it leaves grit in the pill. It ruins the purity. Try using the teeth of a raging flames leopard instead. Zhu Hixin froze, his mind raced, deconstructing the suggestion. The leopard, fire alignment, it would neutralize the yin of the black rock, it would melt into the solution perfectly. Gods, why didn't I see it? The old man looked at Ling Han with a gaze that bordered on predatory hunger. Young friend, please, come upstairs, let me host you properly. Hosting was a lie. He wanted to trap this walking encyclopedia and squeeze every secret out of his head. Ling Han just smiled. I can't. Why not? Zhu Hixin looked ready to burst into tears. Because, Ling Han said, his eyes sliding over to the trembling Ma Da-jun, someone told me to get out. Thud. Ma Da-jun hit the floor, his knees cracking against the tiles. He wanted to howl, to scream, to crawl into a hole and die. If he had known, if he had only known, he would have knelt and kissed Ling Han's boots. The crowd watched in silence, no longer mocking. They saw a man who had dug his own grave with his arrogance. Zhu Hixin's face contorted into a mask of senile fury. He lived for alchemy, he lived for the hunt for lost formulae. And this idiot, this insect, had almost chased away the greatest treasure he had ever encountered. Fool, the Grand Master screamed, explain yourself. Ma Da-jun stuttered out the truth, his voice shaking so hard he could barely form words. He didn't dare lie, though he conveniently left out the most colorful insults he'd hurled at Ling Han. You think your authority is absolute? Zhu Hixin didn't wait for an answer. He delivered a backhand so violent it sent Ma Da-jun spinning like a top before he collapsed, his brain rattling in his skull. You haven't heard of them, so they don't exist. You arrogant worm, do the hundreds of thousands of plants you're too stupid to know simply vanish from the world? They exist. Violet lotus grass in Eaglewood Valley, blue branch fruit in the 100-linked mountains, and rotted leafed roots, they grow beneath the filth of a century-old rot. You are a disgrace. I was wrong, I was a snob, forgive me. Ma Da-jun began slapping his own face, the sound of meat hitting meat echoing through the shop. Zhu Hixin ignored the pathetic display and turned back to Ling Han, bowing his head. Young friend, 1,000 apologies. Truly. Then, a memory flickered in the old man's mind. A story his master told him long ago about a legendary medicine, one that could do the impossible, heal a shattered spirit base. It required those exact 5 ingredients. A formula lost to the tides of time. His heart began to hammer against his ribs. If he could secure this for his master's memory. Young friend, these ingredients. Are you making? Element hard recover spirit powder, Ling Han said, his voice flat. My spirit base took a hit. I'm fixing it. Guh. Ma Da-jun choked on his own breath. A damaged spirit base was a death sentence for a martial artist's career. It was final, irreparable, but Ling Han spoke of it as if he were curing a common cold. Lu Yutong's eyes burned with a new intensity. She knew of the permanent moon pill, a treasure so rare her own great clan would have to bankrupt themselves just to see one. And here was Ling Han, casually shopping for the components to build a bypass. Ling Han, what kind of demon are you? Curiosity, cold and sharp, took root in her heart. Even if he released her from her vow now, she wouldn't leave. She had to see where this path of blood and miracles ended. Young friend, please, take a seat. Zhu Hixin practically begged, his voice stripped of every ounce of the cold arrogance usually worn by a black-grade alchemist. I swear to you, 3 days. Give me 3 days and every single herb you've named will be at your door. I'll stake my reputation on it. Good. Ling Han nodded, his tone bored. In his past life, he sat upon a throne of stars, but he wasn't a fool. He was weak now. Building a network of useful hounds like this old man was a pragmatic necessity. As for the insect Ma Da-jun, a quick slap to the soul was enough. Ling Han wouldn't waste his divinity stepping on a cockroach twice. Zhu Hixin was vibrating with a frantic, desperate joy as he led them to a private study on the 3rd floor. The air was thick with the scent of ancient paper and expensive charcoal. If I may ask, who is your master? Who taught you to see through a furnace wall with your nose? The old man asked, leaning in. I have no master. I am self-taught, Ling Han said flatly. It was the truth. In his previous life, he had pillaged the knowledge of every authority until there was nothing left to learn, then he had surpassed them all to become the god of alchemy. Zhu Hixin didn't believe a word of it. Self-taught, at 16, impossible. He assumed Ling Han was the heir to some hidden, monstrously powerful sect. Seeking to test the boy's depths, he began firing off complex alchemical queries. Ling Han answered them all with a chilling, effortless precision. He didn't just answer, he dismantled the questions. Slowly, the power dynamic in the room shifted. Ling Han wasn't the guest anymore, he was the sovereign. He threw out counter-observations that sent Zhu Hixin into a catatonic state of deep thought. The old man's forehead began to bead with cold sweat. The title, young friend, died in his throat. It became, fellow alchemist. And finally, with a trembling heart, the black-grade Grand Master stood up. He didn't sit again, he stood at Ling Han's side, stooped and humble, listening to the boy's words like a starving dog waiting for scraps of meat. It was exactly how he used to stand before his own master 40 years ago. In Zhu Hixin's mind, Ling Han's theoretical insight didn't just rival his master's, it made his master look like a child playing with mud. Grand Master, Zhu Hixin's voice cracked with emotion. May I remain by your side, to continue receiving your light. Lu Yutong felt her heart stop. A black-grade alchemist, a man who could make emperors kneel, was begging to be a lackey for a 16-year-old boy. If the great clans of the imperial city saw this, they would drown in their own envy. Her own internal walls began to crumble. If a titan like Zhu Hixin is begging to follow him, then what shame is there for me? Ling Han looked the old man up and down and shook his head. I have no interest in taking disciples right now. In his eyes, Zhu Hixin's talent was ordinary. His previous 3 students had been geniuses that redefined the heavens. This old man, he was just adequate. Lu Yutong wanted to scream. He refused. He just turned down a black-grade alchemist. Zhu Hixin looked devastated, but he didn't feel insulted. He felt unworthy. He truly believed his own talent was too pathetic to grace Ling Han's lineage. I understand, I am overstepping. However, Ling Han added, if you hit a wall in your research, you can find me at the Ling residence. I'll spare a few minutes for you. Thank you, Grand Master, thank you. Zhu Hixin bowed low, his face radiant with a pathetic, overwhelming gratitude. We're leaving, Ling Han said. Let me see you out, Grand Master. As they walked, Ling Han turned to Lu Yutong. Oh, Yutong, did you bring any coin? Pay for the herbs for me. Lu Yutong's eye twitched. This man, he had just forced her into servitude, and now he was treating her like a walking ATM. The audacity was breathtaking. No, absolutely not, Zhu Hixin barked, waving his hands frantically. To take money from the Grand Master after the wisdom he shared today? I would sooner cut off my own hand. These herbs are a gift. It is an honor to provide them. Ling Han shrugged. If you insist. He had given the old man a spark of divine knowledge. A pile of herbs was a pathetic price for such a gift. Zhu Hixin would benefit for the rest of his life from those few minutes of conversation. I'll take some return origin pills too, Ling Han added. Cheap trash like that, don't insult yourself by buying them. I make those in my sleep. Zhu Hixin immediately shoved 100 high-quality return origin pills into Ling Han's hands. To a body-refining martial artist, these were liquid gold, essential for surviving a real fight. They left the pavilion with the Grand Master bowing them out into the street. Where now? Lu Yutong asked, her voice hushed. Home, to wait for my medicine. Without a healed spirit base, he was just a man with a big mouth. He needed to begin his ascent. Do you really know more about pills than anyone else? She asked, her curiosity finally winning. In this world, there is no one better, Ling Han said. No boast, just a brutal fact. Liar, she huffed, though the conviction in her voice was gone. Why didn't you let him follow you? She pressed. He's a gushing spring tier warrior. He could protect you better than I can. Ling Han stopped and looked at her, his gaze traveling over her cold, beautiful features. First, your potential is higher. You'll hit gushing spring soon anyway. Second, I don't need anyone to cook my pills. And third, he grinned, a beautiful girl is much easier on the eyes than a soot-stained old man. Lu Yutong felt a traitorous flush of warmth in her chest. Let's go. I still have to teach you the 3 yin mysterious arts, he said, his pace quickening. They walked through the Ling clan gates. The servants they passed looked like they'd seen ghosts. Word had traveled. The trash had broken the butler. The air was thick with a new, terrified respect. Inside his room, Ling Han sat across from her. He was about to recite the forbidden arts that would save her life. Aren't you afraid? She asked suddenly, her eyes searching his. Aren't you afraid I'll take the technique and break my oath? I could kill you and be free. Ling Han leaned forward, his eyes like twin abysses of ancient power. Will you? Half a day ago, Lu Yutong would have traded his life for a scrap of paper. She would have played the part, stolen the technique through cold-blooded deception, and tossed him a few gold coins as a fair exchange. He was just a low-born brat who dared to treat a princess like a servant. But now, the hesitation was a knife in her gut. Her pride screamed for her to run, yet the trail of miracles he left behind acted like a tether. She was terrified, and utterly obsessed with finding out exactly what he was. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, she whispered, her voice a jagged edge of ambiguity. Who can say? Ling Han erupted into a dark, boisterous laugh. Had she sworn undying loyalty, he would have known she was lying. But he was a heaven-tier sovereign, the Alchemy Emperor, subduing a girl who was still green behind the ears was child's play. Strip, he said, his tone as casual as if he were ordering tea. Lu Yutong's face went from pale to a violent, murderous red. The air in the room turned to ice. Did he think he could extort her body for a technique? If the price of life was her soul, she would choose the grave. Don't flatter yourself, Ling Han said, a smirk dancing on his lips. This technique forces origin power through pathways so twisted and obscure they defy description. A single hair's breadth of error, and you don't just fail, you explode. I need to guide the flow. Unless, of course, you'd rather gamble with a stroke. The fury in her eyes flickered. He wasn't lying. In the world of high-level martial arts, a misplaced breath was a death sentence. But she was a maiden of the Lu clan. The thought of a man's fingers tracing her bare skin made her blood boil with shame. They reached a grueling compromise. She would keep her undergarments, and he would use a wooden chopstick as his guide. Get out, she snapped, pointing at the door. Ling Han chuckled, stepping outside. Even a tyrant had a shred of gentlemanly grace left in him. He waited until her voice, small and strained, drifted through the wood. You can come in now. When he re-entered, the sight nearly cracked his ancient composure. Lu Yutong sat on the bed, her hair spilling over her shoulders like a silken black waterfall. She was a vision of ruinous beauty. She slowly let the bedsheet slide away. Her upper body was bound by a simple silk tube top, her skin glowing with the luster of the finest white jade. She had torn the legs from her trousers, exposing thighs that were sculpted to perfection, neither too lean nor too soft. Her face was a mask of resentment, her teeth sinking into her bottom lip as a deep, agonizing blush flooded her cheeks. The icy beauty was gone. In her place was a temptation so raw it threatened to disturb even Ling Han's 10,000-year-old soul. He felt a primal urge to devour this little demon where she sat. He forced his mind back into the cold void. Sit. Cross your legs. Listen to the first level of the mental method. He recited the words like a funeral dirge, heavy, rhythmic, and absolute. At first, she trembled, but the heart of a true martial artist soon took over. The shame vanished, replaced by razor-sharp focus. Her talent was terrifying. He spoke with the speed of a rushing mountain stream, yet she drank in every word. He only had to repeat the 1,000-word chant twice before it was etched into her soul. Then came the dangerous part. Ling Han pressed the tip of the chopstick against her skin. He traced the lines of her body, guiding the boiling origin power through the odd veins. Once, twice. By the third pass, she was already moving the energy on her own. Genius, he thought, his own heartbeat betraying him. He didn't wait. He bolted from the room before his willpower collapsed. If he stayed another minute, he wouldn't be guiding her veins, he'd be pushing her into the mattress. Outside, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ling Han sat on the cold ground. He couldn't cultivate his main technique yet, not with a broken spirit base. Instead, he reached into the darkness of his memory for the indestructible heaven scroll. The technique was a bottomless abyss. It devoured his meager origin power instantly, turning it into a hammer that smashed against his muscles, veins, and bones, tempering them into something harder, denser, more primal. At its peak, this scroll promised a body that defied time and stars. A body that could watch a meteor shatter against its chest without a scratch. But now, he was weak. 5 minutes, that was all it took to drain him bone dry. He popped a return origin pill, felt the rush of energy, and dove back in. Again and again, until the pills lost their sting and his body began to build a resistance. He stopped, his lungs burning. The improvement was brutal. His physical frame now possessed the raw power of a third-level body-refining warrior, despite his cultivation still lagging behind. Heaven Scroll, truly a god-tier curse, he mused. To reach the dead tree tier meant becoming a living corpse, invulnerable to pain, hiding all life signs from the world. And the diamond tier, it meant instant regeneration. Even a severed limb would knit back in a heartbeat. It wasn't just a skill, it was a cheat code for reality. He turned. The curtain to his room swayed, and Lu Yutong stepped out. She looked like a goddess walking through a dream, her face flushed with the afterglow of a breakthrough. "You've finished the first level already?" Ling Han asked, genuine shock coloring his voice. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes darting away from his. There was a new, frighteningly soft emotion stirring in her chest, something she didn't have a name for yet. Ling Han watched her, a dark realization settling in his mind. This girl, she isn't just a genius. She's a monster in the making. She has the technique, and he has the strength. The 3 yin mysterious arts as a staircase to the heavens, 9 layers carved into the soul to match the 9 tiers of martial power. The 9th layer is the heaven tier, the absolute peak Ling Han occupied in his past life before he looked up and realized the sky had no ceiling. In this world, no one has ever shattered the void to reach the 10th tier. That was why Ling Han had spent his previous life scouring the blood-stained ruins of history, hunting for the impossible. The first layer of this art is mere child's play, a foundation for the body-refining tier. For a genius like Lu Yutong, who had long since transcended that level, it should have been easy, like a scholar breezing through a toddler's alphabet. But she hadn't just finished it, she had conquered it in a heartbeat. Her talent wasn't just strong, it was predatory. But then again, she was born with the 3 yin vanishing veins, and this technique was a key forged specifically for her lock. Her speed wasn't a miracle, it was destiny. "We move to the 2nd layer," Ling Han said, his voice a low command. "Once you master the 3rd, those cursed veins will be suppressed forever. You won't just survive, you'll thrive." The 3rd layer, the strength of the gushing spring tier. Lu Yutong felt the heat rise in her cheeks again. To teach the 2nd layer, meant the robes had to fall again. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Stop letting your mind rot with fantasies," Ling Han snapped, his voice cold. She glared at him, a spark of lethal ice in her eyes. Her fantasies, she was terrified of his. They retreated to the inner chamber. This time, the robes fell with less hesitation. The first time was a nightmare of shame, the second was merely a bitter necessity. As her jade-like form sat exposed before him, the air in the room grew heavy, charged with a tension that could snap a blade. By the time the sun began to drown in the horizon, the lessons were done. Ling Han called for dinner, devouring a wolf's share and leaving her a meager portion. Women have small appetites, he reasoned with a shrug. 3 hours later, Lu Yutong emerged, her eyes wide with a manic, terrified joy. "My speed, it's 10 times faster. I'll reach the peak of element gathering in 2 months." Ling Han didn't even look up. "It's a heaven-grade technique. What did you expect?" Heaven-grade. The words hit her like a physical blow. A heaven-grade technique was a myth, a ghost story told to frighten children. Her Lu clan was a pillar of the empire because of a medium-level black-grade scroll. The imperial family ruled the entire land because of a high-level black-grade scroll. A black-grade art could build an empire that lasted 1,000 years. A heaven-grade art, it could rewrite the stars. If anyone else had told her this, she would have cut their tongue out for the insult. But she had felt the power. She had tasted the lightning in her veins. "This is a god-tier treasure," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And you're just giving it to me?" Ling Han smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. To her, it was a miracle. To him, who possessed the indestructible heaven scroll, a technique that took 10,000 years just to glimpse, this was scrap paper. But he wouldn't tell her that. "You're mine now," he said, his voice flat and possessive. "I don't starve my own people." Lu Yutong's face burned. His own people. The words carried a weight she wasn't ready to carry. "I swear, I will never teach this to another living soul without your word." "Do what you want," Ling Han shrugged. Only one person in a billion had the veins to use it anyway. To anyone else, it was worthless garbage. Lu Yutong felt a sharp pang of disappointment. She had opened her heart, waiting for a spark of warmth, a sweet word, a sign that he saw her as more than a tool. He had missed the chance completely. She began to eat, her movements slow and deliberate. Starting tomorrow, I go into seclusion. I'm taking the 9th layer. You'll be on your own. Fine by me. I'm staying put until my spirit base is whole. I'm not throwing this life away on a gamble. The next few days were a tomb of silence. Lu Yutong vanished into the inner chamber to wrestle with her breakthrough. Ling Han stayed in the outer room, a silent sentinel. Ling Zhongquan and his vultures watched from the shadows, their hearts full of poison, but they didn't dare strike. They were terrified of the girl behind the curtain. On the 4th day, Zhu Hixin arrived. The Black-Grade Grand Master personally delivered the herbs, looking at Ling Han with the wide-eyed reverence of a peasant meeting a king. Ling Han, his patience worn thin by the weight, practically shoved the old man out the door. He set to work. Alchemy was his breath, his heartbeat. In 3 minutes, the element Heart Recover Spirit Powder was ready. Gods, this stuff is bitter, Ling Han growled, swallowing the sludge in one go. Seconds later, his blood turned to molten lead. A fire erupted in his gut, roaring through his meridians. He looked inward, watching his dantian with a predator's focus. The jagged, weeping cracks in his spirit base were beginning to knit. The rot was being burned away. He sat, he waited. To a man who had slept for 10,000 years, a few hours was nothing. Slowly, in the center of his soul, the 5 elements mixed chaos lotus began to unfurl. Each petal was a masterpiece of cosmic balance, beautiful and terrifying. The damage was gone, the foundation was set,